youth gang, youth slain, youth gang to be charged. If found guilty, will be charged for murder or something like that.
Right.
And then I saw their faces. It was the same group of friends that I was supposed to meet at Center Point that afternoon.
Wow.
I broke out in cold sweat.
Wow.
Ooh.
You have a story to tell. And just to let you know, the Chris Hansen conversation, we kind of knew. And as we moved along, I realized that, hey, you know what? I got a couple of verticals going on. And I don't want to confuse people anymore. So I have a few different series covering different things.
Right.
One of the crazy ones, though, which I love very much, is the one about UFOs and aliens and ET and all that, And that one is called Euphora, short for UFO Reveal Asia. Because, Asians are into this hantu thing.
They don't the really, ghosting.
The ghosting, and they don't really bother about what's happening in our skies, maybe.
Yes.
And I'm the first podcast to do that in Asia, in the English medium.
Okay.
Then we have some more. A series called I Love My Job.
Right.
Which there are people out there who do jobs that people don't think about, or people who've transitioned from maybe from being an academic or being someone holding a very high position to something to a trade, not because they don't have a choice, but because they want to.
Okay.
Then there's another series the one that we're on right now for the Chris Hansen conversation.
Okay.
This one today is called Shine a Light.
How apt.
Exactly. So when I came up with this idea for Shine a Light's purpose is to bring inspiration to people.
Right.
Through my guests' stories. Stories that have some meaning, some challenge, some difficulties, and how you overcame those.
Right.
And to be where you are today, a good person, and that if you can do it, so can many others. That's the purpose for Shine a Light. So I'm not all just about for my potty mouth linguistics. It's I want to have some good out there because community has turned so cynical. It's driving me up the wall.
Right.
So I want to spread a little bit more goodness. So that's why you are here. And the funny thing is, just so everyone here knows, welcome to the Chris Hansen Conversation. I've been chatting with my guest. And he is a pastor. I got a pastor in the studio. Me. Can you beat that? Next season I'll have a Catholic priest, I can tell you. And I'm happy to have him here. He has a story to tell. He is Leon Chester Stewart. Welcome to CCBTV.
Thank you, Chris, for having me here, and everybody. Hello.
Pleasure's all mine, man. Pleasure's all mine.
Yeah.
And you reached out to me some months ago.
Yep.
On Facebook.
Yeah.
And you asked me this question. You asked me, do we know each other? Have we met? Right?
That's right.
Yep.
Yep.
And I had to, hey, who's this guy, man? Then I went to check your profile and I took a look at your picture, the way you look now, and I went, oh, I don't think so, right? I don't know.
Yes, I remember your reply.
Yeah.
I don't think we've met.
Yeah, I don't think we've met. And then when I came up with this idea for this series called Shine a Light, then I found out about your story, and I went, the first name that appeared in my head was yours. So I got to ask this guy, man. Then I checked with Bruce Matthew, and he said, yeah, he's got a story to tell you. And Bruce is a friend.
Good old Bruce, yeah. Good old Bruce, old friend. Yeah.
Bruce is a friend, and Bruce told me, yeah, you should get him on the show. And I said, okay, I will. And then when I did my research on you, and I came across this young picture of you. Can we put it up, please, Leroy? That one.
Yeah.
And then guess what? Immediately it hit me right in the face. I said, I know this dude. I actually know this guy. And then I remember a few things. I don't know whether you recall some things.
Well, go ahead and fire away. Let's see if I can remember.
Okay.
At this age.
I know you're only a year older than me. We're all not that bad.
We'll keep it all quiet for now.
No,
how old we are.
I've told everybody throughout practically almost all my episodes how old I am. I remember Far East Plaza.
Yep.
Back in the late 80s, if I'm not mistaken, in the early 90s.
Yep.
I remember that dude, that picture, that young picture of yours. I remember that guy.
Lots of memories. Trust me.
Yeah.
When I looked at that photo.
Really?
Yeah.
And then you know what? I remember this guy. You were kind of broad, kind of intimidating. But we never had an issue. I've never had an issue. You never had an issue.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so strange. We didn't talk.
Nope.
Remember? We see each other.
Yeah.
And
That's
you
right.
would go, hey. And I'll go, hey. And then you will walk past and I will walk past. Yeah.
And we do our own thing.
Yeah. But you were always moving about, looking over your shoulder.
Yep.
And you were always looking for something or someone.
Yeah.
I remember that guy.
Yep.
And I've always told myself, wait a second, something's not right here. So honest to goodness, my memory of you is something like that. Maybe Woodstock.
Oh, yeah.
On the rooftop of Paris
the
Plaza.
sixth floor of
Yeah,
Paris. That's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
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 And the Y Pub.
Yes. And then there was the Kiwi Pub also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Y Pub, the late Trevor Boniface.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I encountered you in a few spaces in that place, Far East Plaza, at a time when the Far East kids were dying down.
Yeah.
It was dying down.
Between 1983 to 1985.
Around
thereabouts.
yeah, but when I met you, fleeting meets that is.
Yep.
I think about maybe 86, 87.
Yeah,
So
So it was dovetailing.
Yeah,
The
correct,
people that were hanging around there.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was dovetailing at the time, but
that's
you
right.
were still hanging around.
I was.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Okay. But other than that, Leon, I don't know very much more.
Right.
And I'm glad that I don't, because I'd like to hear it from you.
Sure.
The title for today's episode, and I hope you're not going to kill me for this. I'm sure you won't. It's that one, From Gangster to Pastor.
Oh, that's fine.
You cool with that?
I'm cool with that because that's the honest truth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk honestly.
Sure.
What were you like back then, man?
Well, I grew up in a good family. My family was intact. Mom, dad, my brothers. I was, everything was okay.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up, but it was tough because my father fell ill at a very young age. When we were little kids, he had a couple of heart attacks.
Right.
And so he got really sick and he couldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom had to be the main breadwinner
Right.
when we were kids, when we were in, I think, primary school.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember we had to actually get welfare, man. We had to actually go on welfare. Thank God for St. Vincent de Paul. They helped us.
Right.
Yeah, and I remember that we also had to get school books and pocket money from the school.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people came forward to help us because of the situation. And because, between my two other brothers and myself, I was the very curious one, the one that's always like to try anything and everything.
Okay.
And so I would be the very outstanding guy, and I'll be doing a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll always get in trouble, always. There was one incident that happened when I was about 8 years old, where I actually literally destroyed my mom's fridge. Yeah, because I hung on the door and I swung on the door and the whole fridge came down.
Boy.
And she chased me around the house with a cleaver outside of the HDB block on the ground floor. We were staying in Margaret Drive back then. The flats don't exist anymore.
Okay.
So she chased me around the cleaver outside. The neighbors all came running out trying to catch her. Police cars came. The old Volkswagen.
Yeah. The old Beetle.
Yeah, that's
the
right.
black and whites.
That's right. They came around and I dashed back into the house. I hid under the bed in the room. And the cops had to basically tell my mom, put the cleaver down, that kind of thing. And that was the start of me being too adventurous. And eventually, as we grew up, my mom was always on my case, always comparing me with other people, other friends or cousins. Why can't you be like that guy? Why can't you, do this and do that?
Yeah.
So I began to actually have very bad relationship with my mom,
Okay.
And so this went on for many years as I grew up. We eventually moved to Bedok, not very far from here. And so anyway, and I think it was at the age of 12, my PSLE years, the first PSLE year, where things really got out of hand, where I was actually not, really fooling around. I was not a bad kid. I was not. It's just that I was very curious, and like I said, I like to do anything and try anything. And so I remember in primary 6, I met this guy. I'm going to keep his name quiet,
Right.
because he's passed on.
Okay.
Unfortunately. Anyway, he introduced me to my first cigarette at the age of 12, and I took a puff. And I think that was the turning point. I would say that was the turning point. Why? Because I kind of liked it, and I began to buy my own cigarettes. Back those days, they used to have the 7 sticks in one pack.
Yeah, 7.6.
Yeah.
Lucky Strike.
That's right. And then all the small little cigarettes. And so we used to buy that. And I think I didn't do very well. I remember that year, and I flopped my PSLE.
Which school are you from?
St. Andrews. I was in St. Andrews Junior School.
But you were living in Bedok.
That's right.
And you went all the way.
Yes, to Potong Pasir. That's
oh
right.
dear.
Yeah. So
Right.
So anyway, so that was the beginning. When I failed my PSLE. Of course, my parents were really ballistic. They had gone ballistic with me. How can you fail? Things like that. But I had become so hardened already at such a young age. And then I remember I retained in primary 6 to retake my PSLE. And by then I was already 13.
Okay.
Right? And that was my first foray into Far East Plaza.
Wow.
Now, what was very interesting, if you can remember, there was this building that is next to the old Lido Theatre. The old Lido Theatre. I think it was called International Building.
Yes, it's still there.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was a Burger King
Yes.
at the basement.
Right.
Okay. So I remember this friend of mine who introduced me to my first cigarette. He says, "Hey, you got to follow me down on Saturday and come and meet a bunch of guys." So I said, "Oh, okay. It's Saturday we don't go to school." So I followed him down, and I remember as clear as day walking into that place. And in those days, you could smoke in those restaurants.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, right. And I remember sitting, going in, and I was looking around, and it was filled with smoke. And I saw this group of men, young men. They were definitely older than me.
Okay.
And so this guy, my friend, brings me in. He sits me down, and he says, "You sit here. I'm going to introduce you to some people." So I said, "Okay." So I sat down. And he introduced me to some of the guys. And then he actually introduced me to the leader of this group. All right. Now, I want to not say anything about what group this is.
Sure.
Right? But it was a secret society.
Right.
Which I didn't know back then.
Okay.
Because I was so new and
You were only 13.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So what happened was I met this guy. All right. He goes by the name of Mike.
Okay.
And he introduces himself to me. He's tall. He's big. And he says, "Okay, you're going to hang with me today. We got to go over to Far East Plaza. Do you know where Far East Plaza is?" I said, "No, I don't know where it is." So anyway, I remember sitting at this booth in the Burger King.
Right.
And there were these machetes hidden in the
booth.
In the booth like this. They could slot it behind.
Slot it behind,
Yeah.
Right.
So I was really naive. And I said, "What are machetes doing in a booth?" Before I know it, they had gathered it, and they were actually going to Far East Plaza
For a gang clash.
Yeah, for a gang clash, for a fight.
Right.
And I remember this guy Mike. He held my hand. He says, "You're going to stick by my side all the way." And we used there was this underpass that we were able to get across.
Yeah.
Where it was called Tanks, CK Tanks back
CK
then.
Tank, yeah.
That's right. So we took the underpass. We walked to Far East Plaza. We sat outside. It was Wendy's restaurant back then.
Yeah.
With the steel chairs
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah.
And so I remember within a couple of minutes, as we stood there, the fight broke out. And I was just standing there, and I was watching people running up and down and things being thrown at each other. I didn't see the weapons at all, but
Right.
I remember seeing a guy getting beaten up, and I froze. As I stood as a 13-year-old, I froze, and I saw the amount of violence that was happening,
Right.
And the strange thing was, as much as I froze, I kind of enjoyed it. It was really, really dark, really weird. I stood there and says, "Wow," and Mike looks at me and says, "You don't go anywhere. You just stay here by my side." Of course, I was panicky inside. I was
Right.
really frightened. But
Right.
he gave me this assurance, And true enough, his gang basically they overcame the other gang,
Right.
And they all ran helter-skelter. And so his gang was left behind. And then we just walked away. We literally just walked away. Now, I won't go into great detail of what happened, but there was bloodshed. No one died, but there was bloodshed because I saw a few of the victims from the other gang got cuts and all that kind of stuff. And I remember we walked all the way down to Newton Circus, the hawker center. And this Mike and his I think his right hand and his left hand man, they bought a round of beers for all these men, you know. And I just again sat with him, and he looked at me and said, "So, you ready?" And I was like, "Ready for what? You know, you ready to be part of us?" So I said, "Can I think about it? Because you know I'm only 13." And then my friend who brought me there, he was also at the table, you know. Right. And Mike told him, he says, "You bring this young man home." And so we walked away and we went back home. But that incident, I think, sort of crafted the path ahead, because somehow there was this sort of drawing power it had.
There's some glorification.
Yeah, you know, and it felt good. It's a real dark thing to feel, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember a week later, we went back again to Far East Plaza, and Mike was there and the rest of the guys. And so they asked me, you know, "You want to hang with us? You want to be with us?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, you know, if you don't mind." He said, "Of course, you know." And the more I hung out with them, the more I saw the power, I would say power, inverted commas, that they carried, the strength that they carried. And it felt good, you know, being with them. And that's where I guess I became very egotistical. I felt this bravado within me to like, you know, anyone can come and try me kind of thing. And I became very daring. And at the same time, I became very rebellious. Didn't listen to mom. Dad was really not well, and Dad was easy with me because Dad was really nice to me. I mean, in his condition, I guess he knew that his time was coming soon, stuff like that, you know. Well, anyway, he hung on for a pretty long time until I was 21 before he passed on. But by then, you know, he just didn't have a say to keep up with the action that I was involved in. But mom was always on my case until I won't come back home at night. And I remember at the age when I was 13, came 14 years old, I remember I walked into the principal's office and I said, "I'm done studying." Yeah, I just walked in. I didn't even knock his door. I walked in and he was stunned, you know, and he said, "You know, you can't do that. I need to call your parents." I said, "Yeah, go ahead and call them. I can't give a damn. Go ahead, you know." And I was so steep in the gang, I was so deep in it that I had actually sort of worked myself up where they considered me a fighter. Where if there was a fight that's going to take place,
you'll be activated.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
When you left school, when you went into the principal's office, were you in secondary 1?
Yeah, I was in secondary. I was in secondary 2 as I had retained. Okay. I also retained again in secondary school.
Right.
Yeah, and by then I lost my interest in studying. And so I remember towards the end of being 14, at the end of that year, that's when I walked in and I says, "No, I'm to hell with studying," you know. It broke my mom's heart. I remember she broke down, she cried in front of the principal's office. But by then my heart was so hard like a rock, and I didn't really care about anyone but just myself. And so anyway, I left school and I continued with this gang. I continued doing a lot of things, going around and progressing in fights, and then girls came. With power comes the women, you know. So at such a young age, I had a lot of girls who came around me, you know.
At 14?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I remember, it was really, really crazy. Schoolgirls, I won't mention which school, but
sure.
But they will be coming up to me and trying to be frisky and stuff like that at such a young age. I was really on the path of destruction. I think I was just so enveloped in this power and this glory that I had, you know, like so many people were afraid of me at such a young age. And then unfortunately, I remember there was a major fight in in Far East Plaza, where everyone, Mike and all, just ran. It was really huge because there was a lot of bloodshed. There was another fight that took place, And I remember it so bad that we were carrying pagers back then.
Yeah.
And a message came into the pager. It was a code which says, lie low, don't come out. We would know when we looked at the number, And so I remember we took cover and we stayed away from fires for a bit because by then there was this huge operations that the what they call it, Angcia, the Angcia, which is the SOC they call it now.
Yeah,
Special
the
Ops
Black
Command.
Maria, basically.
That's right. Yeah, they went around and they were rounding up all these secret society members and stuff like that. So I remember lying low,
right,
really low. But unfortunately, by then, I think it was 1985, 86. Yeah, 85.
Right.
Where I had to find a job because I had left school, and I didn't do anything. So I worked for a family, and they were good. They were fiberglass boat makers. And I didn't have any proper educational qualifications because I left in secondary too, I retained. And so I remember working for this family, and that was the first time I was exposed to drugs. Yeah.
With this family?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
The sort of people that hire you as a family.
Yes, but the sons were the ones I was working with. And so they introduced me to marijuana.
Right.
And then I got really hooked into it at the age of 15. And I started popping pills and trying everything and anything under the sun. And it just carried on right through even to the army. Yeah. But anyway, coming back to 1985, 86, 87, a very interesting thing happened in 1987. I'm not sure if you can remember this. It was in the news. Center Point murder.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Okay.
Very much so.
Well, let me just have a sip of your coffee.
No, please do.
Well, let me tell you,
man. None of us forgot that.
Yeah, so 1987.
Yeah.
By then, I had joined another gang.
Okay.
Because I lost track of the rest of the guys. They all went to hiding because of this big fight.
Right.
So for many years, from 85, 86, I don't know where these guys had gone.
So you mean Mike and all?
Yeah, Mike.
They disappeared?
They disappeared.
Off the grid?
Until today.
Huh?
Yes.
No way.
Yes. Until today, I do not know where they are.
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Now it's 2023.
Yeah.
I do not know where they are until today. There were 6 of them, the main guys of the group. Really.
So there must have been really something bad, right?
Yeah, really, really something bad because there's no trace of them, and back then you have no social media, so you can't track them.
Yeah.
And we didn't have handphones back then. So,
right.
So I remember, lying low, really bad. And then in 1987, a very interesting thing happened just before the Center Point murder.
Right.
I was at home, all right, and I was about to go out and meet this new bunch of guys, friends that I made, and they're also from the gangs. And it was a Saturday morning, and so I remember putting my shoes on, and it was a HDB flat, regular HDB flat, front door facing, and I got up, just about to go. My mom comes right in front of the door. She stands with her hands right across the door, blocking the door, and she says, "You are not getting out of this house." So I said, "Mom, you have never grounded me before. Why are you doing it now?" Mm-hmm. She says, "I'm telling you, you're not leaving this house right now." Mm-hmm. So I said, "Why?" "Because God told me so." And I was like, "What?" Now, my mom has been a Christian for a long time.
Okay.
So it's like the devil and God living in the house. Me, the devil, my mom, God. Okay. So she did exactly. She said that. She went, "God told me," and I was like, "Huh? What do you mean God told you?" She says, "Yes, God told me not to let you out of the house." So of course I got very angry, and I just scolded her with all sorts of expletives, English, Hokkien, Malay, the works, And she just stood there and she said, "If you are going to leave this house, it is over my dead body." Of course, I was not going to kill my mom.
Okay, thankfully.
Yeah. I got so angry with her that I stomped off into my bedroom, slammed the door, blasted my music, took out my cigarettes, and just puffed away. And I was just so angry, but I knew I couldn't do anything because that's one way out.
Right.
So I stayed in that room, all right, throughout the rest of the day. And then, of course, I came out later on in the evening, and then just did my own thing within the house. And she did not let me go out at all. She really literally took the house keys, and I really couldn't leave the house. So anyway, that was a Saturday. So I'm thinking to myself, man, how am I going to meet these guys? Because I told them I'll meet them at Center Point.
Right.
Okay. We were supposed to meet at, I think, 1 p.m.
Right.
So Saturday came, gone. Sunday came and gone. Monday came and gone. Tuesday came and gone. And I remember it was a Wednesday. And I was sitting down in the hall, and my parents, they subscribed to the Straits Times.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought the papers in. And when I flipped it open,
Mm-hmm.
I got a shock of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Huge print. It said something like in bold, like, in bold letters, it said something like youth slain. Youth gang to be charged, if found guilty, will be charged for murder or something like that.
Right.
And then I saw their faces. It was the same group of friends that I was supposed to meet at Center Point that afternoon.
Wow.
I broke out in cold sweat.
Wow.
Yeah, I was really stunned. And I remember my mom was at the office, and I called my mom over the home phone. And I said, Mom, did you see the newspapers this morning?
Yeah.
She says, yes, I did. And I know that those are your friends. Because she has met them before.
Right.
And I remember I just went silent on the phone. And then she says, are you there? I said, yes, Mom, I'm here. And she said, I told you. God told me not to let you out of the house. Do you understand? And I couldn't answer her. I was dumbstruck because a lot was going on in my mind. I mean, God spoke to her to tell her not to let me out of the house. And then I see these guys in the papers.
Right.
And I just couldn't accept it. I was so defiant. I told Mom, I said, no, this is rubbish. This is pure rubbish. How can God tell you what's going to happen?
Yeah.
That was how dark and how hardened I'd become.
Right.
And she says, well, I told you so, son. You just have to listen. And I remember I just hung up the phone without saying bye to her, and I was so defiant. I had to find my way out to go and see these guys, So I went up, I decided to leave the house, and I was trying to see who I can reach out to, to find out what's going on.
Right.
And then I remember I had a page on my pager of a number. I returned a call to this number. And it was one of my friends, another friend who knew this group.
Right.
And he says, listen, don't go out. Stay at home, lie low, because you're part of that gang. Anything can happen. But I said, but I was not there. I said, no, but they can always implicate and say, things.
You have a solid alibi.
Yeah, but I said, yeah, exactly. I said, I was at home,
Yeah.
and I got proof. Then he said, whatever it is, just stay away. So he hung up the phone. And that was 1987, and that thing happened. And I remember I just decided I was actually quite frightened. I actually went, okay, this is murder. This is, play a fool. This is getting serious. And my mom thought that things would change for the better. I saw her wake up, and
You mean you didn't?
No, man.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. So anyway, national service came a calling, right? National service came a calling.
Right.
And I remember went into the army, and I had the best time of my life in the army because I was one of the very rare enlistees of national service that served my whole 2 years just playing rugby.
Oh.
For the Singapore Armed Forces Sports Association, SAFSA.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I played for Army Formation.
Okay, yeah. So I was very blessed in that way,
Right.
So, but I was still downhill. In national service, I was still smoking dope. I was.
You were, but there would have been regular urine checks.
Yeah,
and
but
stuff.
I don't know. Because I was never in the unit. I was always out.
Oh,
yeah. So I got away.
No wonder.
Yeah, I did a lot of rubbish in the army.
Right.
I was still very much involved in fights and the gangs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then it just escalated. I carried on in the army. I ORD'd, finished my army in 1990. I went out working, but I was still doping, and I was living a life of the prodigal son. Really, literally, I was partying every night. I was drunk, falling down stupid, doing a lot of things.
At Hard Rock Cafe?
Everywhere, everywhere. I was stealing motorcycles to joyride to go home. Yeah, like I'm so drunk, and I don't have cab fare because I've blown all my money on booze.
Yeah.
I'll look for some motorcycle
Right.
and try to hotwire the bike, things like that, and then fall over with the bike, So I did a lot of rubbish during that period of time, I remember, after the army.
Uh-huh.
And then I remember I got a really good job in 1992,
Yeah.
working with crocodiles.
Hey, hang on a second. Can we put that
Yeah.
one up, please? Check that one out, man.
Yeah, that's me and Mr. Crocodile. Yeah,
So you're working on a crocodile farm
yeah, in Jurong.
in Jurong.
It was called the Jurong Crocodile Paradise.
Yeah. I remember that
Yeah,
one.
so I remember saw the small little ad in the papers, real tiny little ad in Straits Times,
Right.
looking for, and I remember crocodile performer. I was like, crocodile performer? You mean a crocodile can perform? English is pretty bad here. I think they're looking for someone to work with crocodiles. So anyway, I gave them a call and they asked me to come down.
Right.
So I came for the interview, and then I found out what it was all about. You basically were a wrangler. You work in the crocodile farm. You look after them. You feed them. You're like a zookeeper,
Right,
You know.
right.
But then they also had what they call the crocodile show,
Okay.
and I didn't know what that was. And then so I sat down. I remember, and they showed me a video of the show. Mm-hmm. I was like, wow, you mean you get to actually literally do shows? You dance with them. You put your head in their mouths. Things like that, and you walk on top of them. So
Yeah.
it was like, I mean, I'm an adrenaline junkie. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, this looks cool. This is, yeah. So I accepted the job. And I remember, and then I began working there. And I was still doping on the site. I
Okay.
kept quiet. And then I remember I was so bold and I spoke to one of the guys there. I said, hey,
Right.
you guys, have you ever smoked marijuana before? Then he looks around, he's like, you got? So, man. And that was the start of another season
Right.
with these guys. So these colleagues of mine, we were blowing stuff off every other day. We were getting so stoned going and do these shows with the crocodiles. I mean, we were flying, and then we will buy Chinese rice wine,
Right.
and then we'll drink. They call it bong kilo. That's right. I remember
Okay.
bong kilo. So it's like this Chinese rice wine. Then we'll drink it, get so high, we'll smoke, and we started taking tablets. And so we were flying.
And
right?
then you guys were still working with the crocodiles. And
Yes, going into their pens,
Yeah.
catching them. Sometimes you have to transfer them from one sector to another sector. And
Yeah.
things like that.
And
So-
you're stoned and you're
Yes,
doing that?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's nuts, man.
yeah, it was really nuts. And so that was 1992. I remember. Yeah, 1992. Oh, that was a crazy year. And
But there's a glint in your eye when you talk about this,
yeah, I mean, it brings back crazy memories. It brings back crazy memories. It was actually a very egotistical job. You know why? Because a lot of Japanese tourists, the girls,
Yeah.
the Europeans, they
Yeah.
will come around and say, "Oh, you're so brave." And they were like, "Oh, okay, Tarzan's here. That's Jane." Yeah, I mean, we had that kind of really, really egotistical attitude. And I mean, of course, we made a lot of friends with these girls.
Yeah, I'm
and
pretty
we
sure.
we went out, we partied. It was really crazy.
Yeah.
And so we carried on doing this, and that was all the way. I remember in January of 1993, where my heart stopped. Not physically.
Okay.
I was captured by my now wife. Yeah. So anyway, what was very interesting was in 1993, I met my wife literally at the front door of my mom's home. I tell you why, because my younger brother, he had a girlfriend back then.
Right.
And they were good friends from primary school, my wife and this girl.
Okay.
And so my younger brother was visiting my mom's place that particular evening with this girlfriend of his. And so my wife, they made contact after, I think, a very long time, I think since primary school. They decided to meet. And so she invited my wife to come over to my mom's home.
Right.
And I was there at my mom's home also. And so that's why my younger brother went to pick her up from the Bedok MRT station and brought her back home. So I was sitting down in the hall, just chilling on my mom after dinner. And my wife stands at the door and I go like, "Stop the press." Who's that? Yeah. So, I mean, I do believe it was love at first sight. I do believe it was love.
Well, it sounds like it.
Yeah. Because I was like, wow, who is this chick? I
Right.
mean, yeah. And so anyway, that was 1993, and it was a whirlwind romance. Within 6 months, we got married.
Okay.
Yeah, after meeting.
So
And
in 93, you must have been 24.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. And
yeah.
she was 20. Yeah.
Okay. Who, incidentally, I know your brother-in-law.
Yeah.
He stayed over in my house, my mother's house, one
Oh.
particular year.
Oh, okay. Well, guess what? His sister is the one I married.
Yeah, well, I kind of
Yeah,
guessed that.
but it was it was like really crazy, because we were classmates also.
Okay.
Yeah, and so he wasn't too happy that I was hooking up with his sister. I mean, that was many years ago anyway. So so anyway, when she met me, eventually she found out I was doping and stuff like that, and I think she liked the reason why she wasn't so bothered back then was because, number one, she was young.
Right.
She was 20. And this is what she told me, right? This is what she told me. She said that she kind of liked my long hair. I had hair back then. She liked my long hair.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah,
Can we put up the one on the bike? I mean, people got to see this, man, because right now everyone's seeing him without hair. And I see that's Leon Stewart on his Harley Davidson.
Yeah. That's not mine, actually. That's my brother's Harley. My other brother's Harley.
It's not one that you actually stole, right?
No. No. So anyway, so she said she liked me because of my hair and stuff like that. So anyway, I think it was also probably she liked my looks, or whatever it is. Yeah. Now, obviously, we got married very young, and I remember at that time, I didn't know this, but the Central Narcotics Bureau were on to me.
Oh,
yeah. Apparently, they were sort of they had a sting operation watching me and a few others, but I was like the main guy they were looking at.
Right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I remember I at that point of time they had taken lots of photographs. They visited the crocodile farm and they took lots of photos of me and the rest of the guys. So that was 1992. So for many years, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, all the way to 97. So I was still doing a lot of stuff. I left the farm in 1996,
right?
Because things were not doing too well. The economy had affected the crocodile farm, and they were going bust slowly. Yeah. So
which they eventually did.
Yeah, they eventually did. So I remember I was offered another job in logistics, and so I left the farm and I moved to this company somewhere in Clementi, and I was working logistics in a warehouse. And I didn't know that the Central Narcotics Bureau was still tracking me.
For so many years.
Yeah, for so many years. They're just watching me.
Right.
And finally, what happened was in 1997, while I was at work, phone call came in the office. And the phone call was basically my wife on the phone, very hysterical. She was screaming at me. She says, the CNB, they're in our house right now. I said, huh? Yes, you brought this shit upon us. They are there now in my house. And then she slammed the phone down. And I just broke out in cold sweat again, So, so the murder thing years ago, I got away. Yeah. So this time around, okay, now CNB, that kind of thing. And I remember I rushed out of the office. I told my boss, all right, I said, I got to rush back home. I have a family emergency. He says, yeah, just go. And I was riding a motorcycle, so I jumped on my bike. I sped all the way back home. And then I parked my bike away from my block at a distance. Okay. By then, I had moved to Woodlands. I was staying in the Woodlands.
Right.
And I remember being all stealthily, looking out and making sure there's no one around. And then I remember as I was looking around, I just want to make sure that there was no unmarked vehicles and stuff like that, around the police and all that. And
so I waited. License plate CVS QX, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then I went to scour the whole car park, just to make sure. Yeah. And finally, I think after an hour, I decided to go up to my home. And when I went up, my mom-in-law was at home, and she opened the door. And she said, "Hey, hi, Leon. Hey, there were a bunch of people that were here looking for you." So I said, "Oh, what did they look like?" "Oh, they flashed their police pass at me." I said, "Oh, okay. How many of them?" There were 5 of them. So I said, "Okay, what did they do?" They said they wanted to come in and look for stuff. I'm not sure what stuff they're looking at.
Right.
So in my heart, I was so scared because I actually had some stuff in my room, in my bedroom.
Right.
And I knew exactly where I'd put it. So anyway, I went into the bedroom. I looked at the cupboard, my wardrobe, and I went, "Oh, please be there. Please be there." So I put my hand on top of the wardrobe, and I was like, the stuff was still there.
Right.
But then I went, hang on a minute. If they came to search the house,
how come they didn't find it in the most obvious location?
Exactly.
Right.
So I asked my mom-in-law, I said, did you bring them into the room? yes. Where were you standing? I said, where you're standing right now. They asked me to stand there and they climbed on top of the wardrobe. I said, they climbed? Yes, they did. And what happened after that? They came down. I said, okay. And then they went to your toilet. They checked the cistern. They checked your bamboo holders on the outside.
Right.
They checked the main bathroom,
Right.
the toilet. They checked everywhere.
Right.
And then what happened? But then they said nothing. They just gave me this name card and said, when you get back home, to give them a call. Now, come on. How can they not? This is our police force.
Yeah.
They are so good.
Yeah.
It just didn't register. How can they miss this out?
Yeah.
It was a package.
Yeah.
All right, a package like the rolling cigarettes, the tobacco.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
kind of package. Yeah. That drum and all
that's
that.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
How can they not see it? Well, anyway, I remember I took the card from my mom-in-law and I called the police officer and I gave him a mouthful. It's a stupid thing to do. I even said, you want me to do a urine test? I'll come down, I was so arrogant. Yeah, I was so dumb and it was ridiculous, And I was high. Because
when you called, you were high.
Yeah, because I'm always smoking.
Right.
I'm always hitting. So I know it. So basically, it was rubbish coming out of my mouth.
Right.
Mouth engaged before brain does.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, the guy was very pleasant. The officer on the other line, he says, listen, I don't need you. I really need what I wanted. Thank you very much for calling us back. And he hangs up on me.
Right.
So, of course, eventually, I shared with my mom what happened.
Uh-huh.
And my mom said, second time.
Well, it's kind of impossible, don't you think?
Exactly.
I mean, it's like hidden. It wasn't even hidden.
Yes.
It's in plain sight.
Exactly. And she goes, second time. Now, of course, at that point of time, my wife thought, oh, okay, this is going to be the turning point for my husband. He's going to change, right?
Please tell me you did.
No, man.
Oh.
That was 1997, I remember. Oh man. I became worse. I literally, and I'm okay to share this publicly because my wife knows. I had multiple affairs after that.
Okay.
My marriage was really going crazy. I mean, not my marriage. It was me going crazy. I was having multiple affairs, and I am thinking my wife is stupid, but oh man, she's smart. She knew everything. She knew what was going on. She knew that I was having these affairs.
Any kids yet at the time? I
had already my daughter, and she was I think 5 or 6 years old. She was born in 94.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, So it was really blatant what I was doing. I didn't respect her. I thank God I didn't hit her, but I just didn't treat her well as I'm supposed to as a husband, that kind of thing. And so I was just partying every night, getting stoned, getting high, having multiple affairs and things like that. And it just went on and on and on. And I remember, and this was all related to me after my encounter with God. And I'll come to that shortly.
Sure.
So what happened was apparently my mom had always been telling my wife, listen, hang in there. Let's pray for him. Let's pray for him. And my wife was not a Christian at all,
I got to stop you there, man.
Sure.
I'm going to rewind back
to
when we started this conversation, man. When you said that your mom used to love to compare you to other people, right? That probably got you kind of riled up, right? The sense to want to prove something, to validate yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that probably would be one of the reasons that made you also have that rebellious streak eventually.
Yes.
But then, as the course of this conversation continued, your mom became that person who believed with so much faith that God had told her to warn you.
Yes.
And then still, now, as what you just said, she is the one that still has faith in you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the irony.
I guess mom's love is a love we could never understand. And I remember, I remember her telling, and like I said, it was related to me by my wife and my mom, that my mom was saying, listen, don't leave him, don't walk out, he will change. We must pray. God will answer our prayers.
Wow.
That kind of stuff.
Wow, right?
Yeah, and what was very interesting was because of my mom's faith and my mom being my mom, a very strong-willed woman, she began to share about this character, this person called Jesus to her, and she was actually literally talking about the gospel to my wife, and my wife slowly began to believe.
But your wife was not a Christian.
She came from a Roman Catholic family,
right?
But she was never interested in religion.
And you were not originally Roman Catholic.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So what was very interesting was, so this was going on behind the scenes, and I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I remember I just carried on doing what I was doing,
right?
Partying, all right, the prodigal son, and it went on until the year 2000, in January.
Okay.
We had our second child, our son Gino.
Okay.
And he was born on the 28th of January 2000. By the way, my daughter is born on the 20th of January 1994. Yes,
Same
6
day.
years apart. Yes, 6 years apart. Yeah, and I know it's God, and I do believe it is God. So what happened was he had contracted a very bad flu virus.
Okay.
As a baby.
Okay.
Don't ask me how it happened. And so anyway, he had to be admitted into the hospital.
Okay.
And the doctor said, "Listen, we can't administer any kind of medication because he's a baby.
Right.
He's an infant.
Right.
We just hope that he will pull through."
Yeah.
Now, when you hear something like that, and a baby, right?
Yeah.
Pull through.
Yeah.
So what's the other option? He's not going to make it.
Mm.
So I remember standing in the hospital and looking at his crib because he had all these machines attached to him.
Yeah.
And it was such a painful sight.
I know.
Yeah.
I've been through that.
And so anyway, I stood there and I remember looked up at the ceiling and I said, if there is a God up there, please save my son. I remember saying that. And I was just so egotistical and thinking that, I think he will hear me because I'm demanding that he will hear me. All the pride and all the ego. And anyway, so what happened was we went back home because the doctor said, "Listen, no point you guys hang around here. Go back home. If anything changes, we'll call you and you come back down here." And and so of course we left. And my wife, I remember driving. Oh, that drive back home was like the longest drive. She was silently weeping next to me, and I was controlling my tears. And we were so broken because of the situation, and we just didn't talk because here I am, still partying and doing all sorts of rubbish out there, right? And then, suddenly there's this crisis. And so anyway, we reached back home and my home phone rang.
Yeah.
It was my younger brother. And my younger brother had become a Christian.
Okay.
He had become a Christian. And so he picked up the phone. He called me and he says, "Listen, can I come over with Mom and we pray for you and your family, and lift up this crisis to God?" And I was so arrogant. I turned and told him, I said, "Listen, you can bring any God you want to bring. Just come, no big deal." So he came, and then they sat down together in a circle with my mom, and they began praying. And I was so disrespectful. Instead of joining them in silence or, just being,
Yeah. Reverend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was arms folded.
Really? Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Neighbors doing something funny upstairs.
That's all right. As long as they're not chopping up anybody. Yeah. So, So anyway, I was so arrogant. I was slouching, arms folded and
Right.
looking at everybody and like, what's going on, man? What's taking so long, And then finally, he comes to the end of his prayer. He says, "Amen." And I'm like, okay, And then it was quite late. I remember in the evening, it was about 10:11.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, "Listen, I got to go back home now, So I said, okay. So he gets up and he walks to the door. And just as he's about to exit my front door, he turns around and he points at me. He points at me, literally points at me, And like, nobody points at me. Yeah. Yeah, I was actually about to grab his hand, I thought, what was he going to do? But he points at me, he goes, "Listen, trust God, he will heal your son." And like, oh, okay, if you say so. So, I thought...
And despite all that, you were still so cynical, huh?
Yeah. I was not interested one bit.
Right.
You know, with what he had
But
to
you
offer.
were concerned about your baby.
Yeah, but the thing was because my mind was so messed up. My heart was so hard.
But
Everything
come on,
is
this
my
is
way or
your,
the highway.
This is your baby's son.
Exactly. That's why.
And you were still hardened.
Yes.
Despite.
Exactly. I was
Oh, wow,
still so
man.
arrogant.
Okay.
You know, and so I remember he puts his hand down and he says, just believe. I said, okay, you know. So he goes off. So me and my wife went to bed, didn't talk much at all. We went to bed. Next morning we woke up at about 7-ish, thereabouts. We went back to the hospital. And I remember walking into the ward. And I was surprised because I looked at my son's crib. He was in this transparent container, right? And he was in this container, and it's like, hang on a minute. The day before, he's got no machines attached to him. Why are all the machines removed?
Oh, removed.
Why is the respirator removed?
Right.
And I was like, I got angry. I stomped out. I went straight to the nurse's desk. I banged the desk. I said, what is the meaning of this? My son, you took all the machines off him. How is he going to breathe? And blah, blah, blah. I just shut my mouth off and everything else.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, it was such an embarrassing scene for my wife, poor wife, you know. And she was like, stop it. Stop misbehaving yourself. Stop acting like an idiot. No, she kept, and I said, don't hold me, because she kept holding my arm. And then the nurses kept saying, calm down, sir, or we'll call security. So I said, you better explain yourself to me right now. So a senior nurse comes out and she looks at me, she says, Mr. Stewart, at 4 o'clock this morning, your son began to move in the crib and he looked agitated and he was beginning to make a crying distress sound, you know.
Yeah.
And so we thought he was hungry. We thought he was thirsty. Wanted to see what we can do. We tried to feed him. He didn't want to eat. You know, he didn't want to drink milk and stuff like that. So I made a decision to remove the machines that were attached to his body and the respirator to see how he would respond. After we removed all of that, we found out that he could breathe on his own. And we are just as puzzled as you are. And I was like, oh.
Number 3.
Exactly. But here I have a whole horde of public parents all around because they were all looking at me.
You're making a commotion.
Yeah, exactly. And I was, you could see that, you know, they had that killer look, you know, like, that we can just feel like smashing you up, you know, you crazy xiao ang mo kind of thing, you know. So I remember I hung my head down, I was like, oh, okay, thank you. You know, and I walked away.
Right.
And my wife, I heard my wife say, you idiot, you know. Yeah. So I walked back in and I sat down and I looked at his crib. No. Can't be. It can't be. What Oliver said last night can't be. No. You know, I kept telling myself.
Right.
He said, believe. You'll be healed.
Right.
And then, as I was wondering what happened, I hear this voice by the side of my right ear. Now, in that ward, it was a high dependency ward. There are no adults there except me and my wife, and outside the nurses station.
Right.
These are the only adults that were there.
Okay.
This voice, right next to my ear, said these words: Leon, after all that you have done, I still love you. I spun around. I went, what was that? Then my wife was, what's wrong? I said, I just heard somebody speak to me. And she says, no, I didn't hear anything. I said, I know what I heard. Someone spoke to me. And then I remember I began to feel a bit frightened. I had goosebumps. And I kept looking in this direction because that's where the voice came from. But behind me were all layers of babies in their cribs.
Right.
Some of the incubators and, because it's a high dependency ward.
Right.
So I remember I shifted my chair nearer to my wife. So the crib is now here. My wife is here. I'm here. And I'm looking in the direction where the voice came from.
Right.
And then again, the second time. But this time between my wife and I.
Oh.
The same voice.
Okay.
So gentle, very loving, very concerned. Leon, after all that you have done, I still love you. And I shouted again, there! Did you hear? Right between the two of us. She says, no, I did not hear anything. And I was like, can't be, I know what I heard. And I was sober. That was the beautiful thing. I was not high. I did not abuse any substance from the night before.
Completely lucid.
Completely. I knew exactly what was going on.
Right.
And then I remember sitting there, so puzzled, so confused. And then I remember, some of my friends said, if you're stressful, right, if you're stressed out, right, just close your eyes.
Oh,
and just
man,
relax.
you were still doubting.
Yeah. So I closed my eyes and I just like, okay, I got to calm down. Maybe I'm hearing things, maybe I'm just, all messed up. So I decided to just close my eyes and just be still. And the strangest thing happened.
Yeah.
When I closed my eyes, I saw myself sitting in a big armchair. And in front of me was this huge movie screen. And my life began to play out on that screen. Every single thing that I did, good, bad, ugly, was being filmed. The fights that I got involved in, the women that I was having affairs with, the people that I was pushing dope to and smoking with, all that crap was just flooding my mind. But I was in this chair. And then I opened my eyes and went, what was that? It was so strange. Never had that before. So I closed my eyes again. It played again, the second time. But this time round, something began to happen in my heart. I felt a physical presence inside. I felt guilty. I felt remorseful. I felt very sad. And I began to silently cry. Something was happening to me. I couldn't explain it, but I felt so guilty of all the crap that I was doing. Like there was a eureka moment. I've come to some realization. And then I remember as I kept my eyes closed and my eyes were tearing, I just put my hands up like this, and I kept doing this. I just kept doing this. And I was thinking, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And then I hear the voice again, but this time it's very different. It says, give your mom a call. Yeah, give your mom a call. And so I just stood up.
Why was the voice different? You said
no, different as in the words were different.
The words are different, okay.
Yeah,
but it was the same voice.
Yeah, same voice. Right. Give your mom a call. Same gentle voice, but different words.
Okay.
So I got up, and then my wife looked at me, where are you going? So I couldn't explain to her what was going on. So I just told her, I said, I'm just going out to get a cup of coffee.
Right.
So I exited the ward, and I went down to the lobby, and I saw the payphone there.
Right.
And so I called my mom, and she picked up the phone, and then she says, hey, hi, son. How is baby? Is he okay? I said, Mom, he's breathing on his own. Then she goes, oh, that's good. That's good. I say, yeah, the nurses are also kind of puzzled that he's breathing on his own. But that's very good news. That's very good news, And then I say, Mom, I got to tell you something. She says, what? I said, Mom, I heard this voice. Then she said, what do you hear? I said, I know exactly what I heard, Mom, and I'll tell you what I heard, all right? Help me here. What is it? I said, I heard these words. Leon, after all that you've done, I still love you. Suddenly she shouted at the top of her voice. She shouted, praise the Lord, hallelujah. And of course I was like, what? Mom, what's going on? Why you screaming, praise the Lord, hallelujah? And then she went silent. And then as I was trying to hear what was going on the other line, on the other side of the line, I heard her crying. Give me a moment.
Sure. Take your time, man.
Yeah. Yeah, so she was crying on the other end of the line. And as I heard her crying, I also cried. And I asked her, what's going on, Mom? And she says, son, for 18 years, I've been praying that Jesus will speak to you. And I was just silent for the very first time. I didn't argue with her. I didn't say anything to her. I just kept quiet, and we were just laughing and crying on the phone because she was so elated, and I was laughing, I was crying, and she was laughing, and it was really quite funny. And then I said, Mom, what? And the first time I said, Mom, here I'm asking her, half the time I'm rebelling against her, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm asking her suddenly, what do I do?
I thought so.
And then she says, listen, don't worry. We'll bring baby back home first. Once back home, I will introduce you to some pastors who will talk to you, and you share your experience with them. And, they will tell you what needs to be done and stuff like that.
Right.
And then I said, Mom, who spoke to me? Then she burst out laughing. She said, Jesus lah, God lah spoke to you. I says, really? I said, yes, because I believe he's the one that spoke to you, because I've been praying to him. Oh, okay, all right. So I remember I hung up the phone, and I did something really crazy. So I hung up the phone, and I looked around the lobby. I walked to the center of the lobby of KK Hospital.
Right.
And I looked around, make sure there's nobody, and then I looked up to the ceiling. I said, okay, listen, my mom said, your name is Jesus. She says that you are God. If you are truly real, show me yourself. I said that.
Okay.
I'll never forget saying that. Never ever challenge God.
Yeah.
Because he will show up big time, And what do I mean by big time? Well, that was the turning point in the year 2000. Somewhere in February, I remember, early part of February. And so, what I mean by he shows up big time is because after that, the first 3 years of my journey in the Christian faith, it was really a struggle and a challenge. But he actually showed up, not physically, but I remember my heart began to change slowly. I became softer,
right?
And I began to understand and become very sensitive to things around me,
okay.
And I remember even my drug addiction left me.
Really?
Miraculous. And nothing is wrong with my organs.
No withdrawal symptoms?
No,
Nothing?
man. No.
You just dropped it like that?
Yeah, just like that.
After all these years?
Yes. Yeah, just like that.
Being stoned every day?
Yes. Yeah.
No, nothing?
Nothing. Yeah.
Cold turkey?
Cold turkey. No cold. I mean,
we went cold turkey, but there were no effects, no side effects.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember, so my life had begun to drastically change. The choices that I began to make were more meaningful. Mm-hmm. I even saw my wife in a different light, like as if a pair of curtains were pulled off, or veil,
Yeah.
pulled off from my eyes. I would say my spiritual eyes, because suddenly my wife became so attractive, and I'm not talking about the external beauty.
Right.
I'm talking as a person.
As a person.
Yeah. And it was so strange. And I was even able, I thank God for her, because I was able to actually go to her and say, I'm so sorry, and ask for forgiveness and all that. And things began to change. My daughter, who was already by then, that is very different. Things are beginning to change. And of course, the two greatest witnesses are my mom and my wife, because they saw that happen. Now, then ministry opportunities opened for me, prison ministry, and things like that. So that was a turning point in the year 2000, where things began to change. Now, is it a journey of? Is it a smooth journey? No, it's not. Why? It's because when Jesus came into my life, he didn't guarantee me a smooth, everything's all hunky-dory kind of journey. You will still face challenges. As the Bible says, there's a part of the Bible that Jesus says, listen, in this world you have many troubles, but take courage. I have overcome the world. So I began to understand, okay, so I just plug into him every day, and live by his grace, his extended grace over me. So it's been a very, very interesting journey, and the transformation is not complete. It's an ongoing transformation for me.
Right.
I'm still Leon, Of course, I don't do drugs anymore. I've give up drinking. I don't smoke anymore.
You're not the guy that goes out there looking for a fight.
No, man. No.
You're still the guy that loves bikes.
Oh, I still love motorcycles. I still love bicycles. I love anything two wheels. I still love anything two wheels. Yeah, but I think I began. Of course, there was a lot of regrets,
Right.
especially the tattoos on my body.
Why?
No, because now this I gotta explain to you. When I put the tattoos on my body,
Yeah.
was because I had a very bad low self-esteem. My mom was always knocking me down.
Yeah.
And so I felt, maybe I put more garang, that kind of thing. Well, it was pure stupidity to me.
Well, I got ink.
No, I'm not saying anything about your ink, but for me personally,
Yeah.
it is such a regret. Why? Because I like what my son told me, my son who is now 23 years old,
Okay.
the one that was sick as a baby.
Yeah.
He told me, he says, no, Dad, if God wanted you to have tattoos, you would have come out of mom with tattoos. Out of mama with tattoos, Yeah, I was like, okay, it makes a little bit of sense there. But, but I personally felt that I did all of that out of stupidity because I wanted to be somebody
Right.
whom I thought was supposed to be that Leon.
Yeah.
Right? Sorry.
Yeah,
that
no worries.
Leon.
Yeah.
But that's not the Leon that God had built me to be.
Right.
So I had that regret. But you know what? I had been encouraged by many people that I've met, people in the church and outside of the church who know my story. And they say, hey, listen, God never wastes anything that he makes. And I was like, wow, what do you mean? He says, you were built by God and this is who you are. God has made you. You made mistakes, yes. You tattooed your body. You took drugs. You did a lot of rubbish. But he redeems what was lost. And to him, it's not lost. He now uses it for his purpose and his plans.
Yeah.
So I didn't see that, So it was only through my journey of faith that I began to understand. Oh, okay, So that's why a lot of people when they see me, they say, you're a pastor, but you got tattoos. What's the catch? And that's where I say, okay, this is my story. And then, oh wow.
How many years did it take for you? I mean, you made a decision to become a pastor, right?
No, hang on a minute. This is very interesting. I never ever prayed a prayer to ask God to make me a pastor.
Right.
Never. But something happened in 2003 at a conference where I'm not sure if you heard of people like they prophesy. They speak over your life. I'm not sure if you heard of such things.
No, not
fortune telling.
Yeah, okay.
But so anyway, there was this visiting pastor from Canada.
Right.
And I was at this conference and he comes up at the mic. He's about to start his seminar. And he looks across at me. I'm sitting in the front row.
Right.
And he says, hey, you, what's your name? Then I turn around and he goes, no, you. Me? I said, yeah, you. Stand up. So I stood up and I said, my name's Leon. How can I help you? And this is a conference where there were about 300 people gathered. This was a church conference. And this pastor basically told me in my face that there's going to come a time where God was going to use me. He's going to bring me to places where the church has never been before or doesn't go in and penetrate. I didn't understand what that meant. And so it is many, many years later that I began to understand what he meant, that there was going to come a time where God was going to appoint me as a pastor to work.
Mission work.
Yeah, mission work. And so I can't go into great detail.
Sure.
But I'm also involved in a capacity in the Changi prison.
Right.
Where they call it the Special Handling Unit.
Okay.
And these are men awaiting judicial execution.
Okay.
Okay.
Those on death row.
Yes. So I can't say anything else.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I never saw this coming, and so God has used me not only there but other places within the church, and so I never woke up one day and says, no, I want to be a pastor. No. It was furthest from my mind. Yeah, because the only experience I have, honestly, is logistics.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you went to do a diploma in theology. Can we have that one up, please, Leroy?
Yes. Oh yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Yep.
So now it's more than just logistics, man.
Yeah, this is really by God's grace, to be honest with you. I mean, with someone who had only lower secondary education, it was such an honor and privilege to go up there and to receive that.
Yeah.
It was 5 long years though, because it's part-time. I was doing part-time.
Right.
And it was such a blessing to be able to get the diploma in theology.
Some of the things you said, in your whole story, it's so wonderful to hear, honestly, and it really is inspiring.
Thank you.
And frankly, some of the things in your story resonates with me. I had my son. He was in very bad shape. Same thing.
Oh.
I think what your son Gino had was RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, which is that bad flu that usually kids get at hospitals. And he was hit by Kawasaki disease.
I see.
So I understand that pain, man.
Okay.
And you see your kid with tubes.
Helpless,
Helpless, man. I mean, that broke me. That broke me.
I would think so. It'll break any guy, any dad.
Yeah. And I just want to ask you, out of curiosity, how did Jesus sound like?
Well, definitely not like us.
Timber-wise, how's Timber like? How is his accent like?
Oh, okay, so I've never heard it audible again, but I will tell you this. It was a very firm, but a very gentle voice, mid-tone.
Mid-range?
Mid-range, yeah.
And accent?
No, I couldn't make out the accent. But it was just, it's so gentle. I think the one thing that I truly believe that happened that day in the hospital was when he spoke, I think it was just pure love coming true.
Which you can sense.
Yeah.
Straight away.
I tell you why, because as much as I was such a prodigal son,
right,
he didn't address all the sins that I've been doing. He said, Leon, after all that you have done, I still love you.
And sitting in the armchair watching that movie of all the things that you've done in your life that was wrong. Funny enough, over the past 2 weeks, I've been reading stuff, every now and then I get on my phone, get on my socials, and then you see people give testimonies about near-death experiences. And so many of them actually say that they see their lives flash and the things that they've done to people and then they feel the guilt, So when you mentioned this, it's like, hey, this sounds familiar. I just read this or saw this somewhere a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. Yep. It was like, whoa, hang on.
Yeah, so that was my experience, and I really can't explain until today, but I know for a fact that I've become so sensitive. But at the same time, I also realize that as much as God has given me the second chance, I have to give others the second chance. And that's why, when you mentioned about, you don't go around hitting people or finding trouble and stuff like that. Yeah, it's so strange. Yeah, but it's so strange, yeah.
So, is there a message or piece of wisdom you'd like to share with our viewers, listeners, particularly those who might be grappling with their own challenges and seeking a way forward? Well, on a secular basis first. Yeah.
Sure. I think you need to look for the trigger point. Why you are where you why you are where you are at.
Right.
What has happened.
Right.
Trace back to the point where it all went wrong, and sort of realign yourself. Try to find out really where it went wrong, and go back to that point and sort of get it realigned. By the end of the day, for me personally, I know that I cannot help but say that my own realignment is because of what happened to me. The supernatural encounter.
Oh, man, it took the big boss himself to
the sort of really hit me and speak to me. Yeah. But I want to open this to all of you all who are out there. If you guys are struggling, and if you've seen this podcast, you've heard me, and you want to talk to me, you can get in touch with Chris. I'm not selling or trying to sell koyo. That's what they say. But if you need to talk to somebody, I would be more than happy to.
Okay,
facilitate that.
Great.
Because everyone's different.
Great.
Yeah.
I've actually designed, just to end the show, I've actually designed something and produced something.
Oh, okay.
A very short little snippet to end this episode.
Right.
You will see it when the episode does air.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's done for you.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's kind of fun.
Okay.
So thanks so very much. Pastor Leon Stewart, thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you, Chris, for having me.
It's been such a riveting story, man.
No, for allowing me to share, man.
Not at all. Not at all.
Thank you.
It's such a riveting story. It's so good to hear all that. It's nice. It's really nice to hear.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Right, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Shine a Light on the Chris Hansen Conversation with Pastor Leon Chester Stewart. No, I am not evangelizing. And yes, the show is still secular. Okay, but this is a story worth telling, and it's a story worth hearing and listening. So until next time, whatever it is, stay good. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
I saw the light, no more darkness, no more night. Now I'm so happy, no sorrow and sad.